Hey everybody, it's Darius Foroux. Welcome to a new episode. How are you doing?
Hey guys, welcome to the Chalkmeout podcast with me, Ryan. In today's episode, which is the first episode of 2023, I'm in conversation with Darius Foroux, one of my favorite authors. He's a seven-time author, has written books like Win Your Inner Battles, Do It Today, and many more. He is also a podcaster and has been blogging for the past half a decade. In this conversation, which will last for about 40 minutes, I'm also going to break it down into smaller episodes, but he speaks about his childhood, his choices, how he became an author, and how did he move out of a full-time job in UK to doing stuff by himself in the Netherlands. So I hope you have a good time listening to this, and if you like it, do subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next episode. Now listen to this conversation.
Thanks for having me. And it's funny, the first time you reached out to me was several months ago when I was writing my latest book.
Yep.
Well, the working title is The Stoic Path to Wealth, and I'm currently still finishing it up, last edits and minor improvements. But when people reach out and it's not really the right time, I often say, like, I'm not doing any recording right now or anything, and feel free to reach out in the future. And most people just don't reach out, or they stop their podcast or whatever. So it's also a good way to see how serious someone is about their podcast, or how serious they are about speaking to you. So I thought it was great that you followed up. And now here we are. So as you know, I've been writing since 2015. I've published 7 books until now, and the most well-known ones are Do It Today and Think Straight and Win Your Inner Battles. And until now, I think the books have sold a little over 150,000 copies from what I know. I haven't heard the latest data from Penguin in India, but from what I've understood, they've been doing really well recently, which has been a surprise to me as well, because I never did any marketing or any particular, campaigns or anything like that. So that's been a very, very pleasant surprise. And the Instagram community of book sharers and readers has been also really amazing. But my main work is really around writing books, teaching the stuff that I have learned myself, have applied myself, and creating courses as well.
Yeah.
Super awesome. I'm going to start with a very simple question. I know that you are a very simple man from what you preach, and I also understand that you are someone who practices what you preach. It's your language is legible, it's understandable for even someone who's a baby in terms of reading books. Where does that come from, the simplicity? I think you moved back from London in your early journey as a professional. You moved back to Netherlands. Why does Darius prefer simple things? What's the reason behind it that people can learn from?
Yeah, so I've always been a reader myself, and a thinker, and a researcher in my own private time. And obviously I love learning, and I went through my educational career getting my degrees in business, and specialized in a little bit in finance as well. But over the years, I noticed that most of my family members, or my good friends, or people from my basketball team when I was in high school, or from people that I met in the gym, etc., they were not real readers. However, a lot of them had goals and aspirations, and my opinion is that if you really want to achieve something, you really need to have a right framework, because if you don't have a framework or a system or a roadmap, then it's very likely you will not succeed.
Yep.
And because we only have one life, we want to make sure that we make the best use of our time. So that means that you want to learn from other people who have done it, so you don't waste your time. Now, I saw all of that, and I thought to myself, I've been learning a lot of things, and I have applied them, and I've seen my own life changing. How can I help some of those people who are not necessarily readers to also get into that positive lifestyle? So I thought, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to start a blog as well, and see whether people respond. That was just my only goal back in 2015 when I started.
Yeah.
And not to make money or become famous or whatever, like, to be a best-selling author, etc. So I started doing that, and I started to see some response, some like strong emotional response from people, even though I didn't have many readers in the beginning. Maybe at the beginning, obviously nothing, but then you try and like you publish, and you reach a few people, and then maybe a few hundred people. But I would receive like very strong emails from people saying, "Wow, this changed my whole perspective, and I'm gonna try something differently." Or some people saying already when they read my first book, When You're in a Battles, this changed my life. Like when I heard something like that big from people, I thought, wow, this is really working. And the thing that I was thinking about, I'm seeing now with the folks who are not necessarily readers, but are interested in improving themselves. And to me, it's like the goal is to say, look, this is just a simple book you can read, and you will be inspired by it. And you don't have to read like a 500-page book, or you don't have to read 1,000 books or whatever to change your life. It's all about just maybe one idea or a few ideas that you can apply.
Yeah.
So that's how I always write. I write not for the academics or for the people who think they are very smart, or people who think they know it all. I write for people like myself, my friends, people that I care about in my own life and want to see them do well. So that's my mindset when I write, or that was my mindset when I started writing, and has been my mindset today as well.
No, I think that's lovely to hear, Darius, like from you live, because in your podcast you keep asking, hey, what's going on? Hey, what's up? And I think I'm a living example of the simple suggestions you give that really make a lot of difference. Which brings me to my next thought. In your books, in your podcast, on your blogs, you are someone who mentions, your habits are what make you who you are, and you need to do it today. The title of the book, but apart from that as well, your practices are very, very similar to that. Now, initially, when I was listening to your podcast, it was called the Productivity Podcast. And then it moved to becoming the Darius Foroux Show, right? Yeah. How was that journey? Like, what was the need to change the name? Was it because you were changing the content, or was it the process that you were going through? Because at the start of the conversation, you mentioned that a lot of people who reach out to you probably end up not having a podcast the second time you reply to them, right? And a lot of it has to do with habits, and sort of, because you're an entrepreneur, putting out a minimum viable product, even in a smaller task that you do. I see that you practice that. Where, what are the habits that, I could take up, or someone who's listening to this could take up to really like get going for the last 7 years, like you've been doing this?
Yeah, it's a good question, a good topic, because I've been an entrepreneur. I've always had entrepreneurial tendencies my whole life. And when I started this whole journey, I didn't think to myself, wow, I need a publisher, or I need someone else to help me. I need someone, like I said from the beginning, I thought, how can I do everything myself? Because I don't want to be dependent. I don't like that feeling of relying on someone else to do things for me. I just want to get them done instantly, hence do it today. But the thing is that I did some research into the publishing world, and at the time I decided, this is not for me. I just want to build up my career. I want to build my own website, my own platform, talk to readers directly. And I knew that it would be a long journey. Now looking back, it really paid off, but it takes many years, right, to get in that position. But one very big part of that is trying a lot of different things. And I was talking to someone the other day who was saying, well, I want to start, like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but like a physical product business with, I think, candles or, something interesting. But yeah, I'm scared. What if it doesn't work out? I don't want to fail and then try something else. And then I'm like, and I said, that is part of it. That's not the end destination, or like the end destination is not succeeding or failing. There's only the process. And the podcast is a good example of that, because I started writing, started the book and then started the blog. And then I thought to myself, okay, what's something else that I can do? And, obviously podcasts were really coming up. And then I added the podcast, and like yourself, I just started everything myself. Get a mic, you do everything yourself, you upload the show, you do the design and everything. And then obviously you need a title as well. And one of my main philosophies in life is that you should never get attached to anything, right? Particularly in business, and when it comes to online endeavors. I created this initial title for the show. And I honestly, I don't know. I initially had the usefulness show as well, I think. I don't know. But I came up with the title, and after a while, as I was doing the show, I realized I don't like it, because it kind of limits myself, because I'm a very focused person. When I set certain boundaries, which I think are really helpful for productivity, because if you don't have any boundaries and you're dealing with an open canvas, it's very difficult to do work. So I set the boundaries quite small, where I would say, okay, I want to focus on productivity and overcoming procrastination, but then I realized I have other interests as well and other things to talk about. So as soon as I realized that now is the time to make a change, I don't want to get attached to what I have, I said, okay, I'm going to drop that and just going to go to a more general name where it's around myself. And that means that I can do and talk about anything I want. And if people like it, that's great. And if they don't, that's also fine. But I wasn't afraid to let that go. And the reason that a lot of people say, well, you need to have a very specific title or audience, etc., is like you can reach, particular people or people who search for that, or it's maybe it makes sense for a lot of people. But I didn't think that way, because it wasn't really my primary thing, and still isn't. It's like as you know, like I occasionally upload a podcast episode whenever I have something to say. And not on a schedule. Exactly. Right.
So the last one was about your life updates.
Exactly. So whenever I feel like, okay, I have something to share or to say, or someone I personally know that I want to have a conversation with. So basically, for the past 2 years or so, the people who have been on my podcast are all people who I personally know, all of them. And I talk to them, generally. So I feel like we can have a better conversation for others to have something useful out of it. And
makes sense.
And that's because my primary goal is to maintain my blog and write books. And in Do It Today, I talk about how focus is so important, and that those are not things that are I just write about, but those are real things that I have to live, because if I don't, then the quality of my work will suffer. So I always make sure that I keep those things in mind, right? So like not getting attached to certain things. And basically, it's the same advice as in writing. when I think Stephen King, right, said,
Yeah.
kill your darlings. It's the same thing in business, right? Sometimes you have to kill off certain products or change products or a strategy, etc. So it's a better fit, whether with you personally or with the company or with the customer or the reader, etc. So everything has to make sense. And one of the things that I always do is like I'm constantly questioning everything that I do, whether it's still working out, for everybody. Still does make sense for, in the case of a podcast, does it make sense for that person? Is it helpful? Are they getting something in return? So those are the things that I always think about.
Super nice. I mean, it's really nice to know, because what you're saying right now clicks really well because you're someone who tried out doing videos on YouTube and then you said, no, it's going to take some time away and the quality of the work. And I think your audience as well is the audience that loves reading innately, and also ideas that sort of click when you're hearing onto a podcast and not just like sitting and watching videos, because there's a lot of distraction when I do that as well. Right? Very interesting, Darius. Now, you must speak with a lot of people that reach out to you who want to start off their, entrepreneurial journey or jump from one job to another. If I am 30, I'm confused, I'm in a job and I'm stuck, and I don't have the freedom to do what I want to do. Now, I want to reach out to the audience that's the working professional audience that follows me. And from straight out of the horse's mouth, which is you, what would you recommend them to do if they feel stuck in the job that they're doing and they really don't know, how do I make this shift to either start a business or freelance or maybe jump onto another career path?
Yeah, so one of the things you don't hear a lot of people talk about it is the financial aspect. They always say, set some goals or improve yourself, acquire some skills, start a side project, start small or whatever. But if you don't have the mental bandwidth to do any of that stuff, you will be paralyzed. And the reason why a lot of people feel stuck is that their financial situation or their living situation isn't set up in a way that they feel okay. You don't have to, obviously, few people are financially independent. That's like a very difficult thing to accomplish, but you don't necessarily need to be financially independent to feel somewhat stable. So I set up my support system and financial system up in a way that I don't have anything to worry about. And that sometimes requires sacrifices, but also help from others. And a lot of people often say, well, yeah, my parents won't help me, or I don't have good family, or I don't have something, or whatever. But in my experience, most people, even with the worst family situations, they might have a very supportive partner, or someone who doesn't have a supportive partner might have a supportive brother or another family member. The thing is not to look at what's bad, and that's what most of us, we always initially think about, oh yeah, but my parents are not helpful, or my partner is only trying to scare me, like I've received some of those emails as well from people. Saying, oh yeah, my spouse is whenever I talk about starting a business or changing my careers, is just talking about all of the negatives. So we can't work with those negatives. We have to look at the positive things that we can call on, and then we have to make some sacrifices. Correct. We have to sacrifice something to achieve better results in the future, because I've never seen anyone who starts with nothing achieve something without making any sacrifices. I think that's an illusion. If there are people who say that you can do it, I would not buy it, because everybody knows that everything in life has a price. Nothing comes for free.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. You have to, like, I also, during that 2-year time frame where I was starting everything up, and obviously after that I was doing a little bit better, but still it took like solid 3 years to have everything set up really nicely and earn a good living.
Correct.
But that's a long time, 2-3 years, when you live it day to day, and it's basically every day same thing. Wake up, working out, very very little social time, and your friends also, and you will realize who your real friends are. And you have to sacrifice free time. Like just this morning, one young guy messaged me on Instagram saying that he moved from another country to somewhere else to study, and he was saying, for me sometimes very difficult when I see my friends like posting stories and all the stuff they're doing, and I'm studying. And he was saying that he found Think Straight really helpful. So he feels like normal again now. I said, look, good man, this is good. Want to keep this mindset up, because in the future you will thank yourself for this, right? And that's the thing that can keep you going, by thinking that in 10 years I will look back and I will thank myself for sacrificing 2-3 years, or studying or investing in myself, or living very simply and not spending any money, or not going out, not doing anything social, but at least I make progress in my life. That's the most important thing, because if you sacrifice, you need to see some improvement. Because otherwise then it's not worth it, right? So it needs to be something that's really worthwhile, because otherwise then you do it, then you look back, then you regret. So it needs to be worthwhile, like really saving money, investing money, that kind of stuff, investing in yourself. So that's, I think, the most realistic and also the only sustainable way to go about it. Like all of the gimmicks and the things that sound nice in your head. Oh, I need to start a side hustle. Okay, sounds great, but I don't have time or I don't have energy. So you start out and then you quit.
Correct. Yeah, I think that makes sense, because what goes on in your mind about, when say a young person sees an influencer or an author, they do not see the journey that they've had. They look at the point in time that the society calls them successful, and that's the dream that I think the 99% of the crowd ends up chasing, and they don't really know how the journey's been. And when young people sort of reach out to me, there's definitely these hacks that I can suggest them. But if there are some habits that you would have learned when you were in college, when you were in high school, say a little earlier than when you were introduced to it, what would it be? And how do you think that can expedite the process of knowing where someone belongs in their life? Because, a lot of us are really confused while we're in high school, especially in India. I don't know if you've met Indians or traveled to India.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
There's like a lot of pressure. You need to get this done by year 21, masters by 23, get married by 27. Now that's changing. The students are really confused because of a plethora of information that's coming from a lot of people, right? So what is it that if you had known, say, when you were in high school, what is it that you could recommend to folks who are super confused but are young right now? They don't have a job, they're in college. What is it that they can do in terms of habits to get to where they belong, maybe faster?
Yeah, I think in this case, in that cultural setting, I think detachment is one of the most important things. And I personally, this is one thing that I did have, fortunately, naturally, no one taught me this, but I remember when I was in high school, in the Netherlands, you have to, the school system is very simple, but at some point when you're like 16 or something, or 17, I think you have to decide no, earlier. So I think 14, you have to decide what topics you will focus on for the rest of your high school career until you graduate.
Got it.
So basically, whether you focus on the whole math stuff or like business stuff, or I think there must be a language thing as well. Obviously, I always had a kind of a business mind, but I was also interested in math, and I was good at that as well. Definitely not languages, so I knew that wasn't my thing. But I remember it was a huge topic of discussion for all my fellow students and their parents and everybody. And I always kind of detached myself from it and said, I don't want to think about this too often. Whatever will happen, I don't really care, because I believe in myself. Whatever I choose, I will make it work. That was always my mentality. And I remember I didn't fill in the form until the last day. And even on the last day, the administrator or whoever it was came to every classroom and said, okay, I still haven't received the form from this and this person. You have to hand it to me right now.
Okay.
And the guy comes into the class and everybody has delivered theirs, and it was just like me and this other person, and the other person was like, oh yeah, here's my form, I have it in my backpack. And I was like, yeah, I don't have a form. And the guy was like, but you have to answer to us what you're going to do, because we need that information. I said, do you have an empty form? He said, yeah, sure. He gave me an empty form, and I just filled it in right there on the spot. And I was just sitting there in the middle of class looking, write down my name. Okay, what's your direction? And a lot of people were thinking, and a guy was sitting next to me, he was laughing. He was like, dude, you're going to decide the rest of your life here in this second? I said, the rest of my life? Like, because I didn't think that way. But most people who are young think that way. They think, oh, this is the rest. Oh, if I choose this, my life, this is my life. Right? Correct. And I sit there and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I like business. Boom. Okay, boom. I type it, or I check the box for the whole business route or track or whatever. And I hand the form back to the guy, and that's it. And I go, the next year I start that route and I finish it. And college, same thing. What do you like? Oh yeah, I like. There was this whole thing like hotel school. I looked at that and like learned to get into hotel business. I looked at finance. I looked at some other small business, and then I said, okay, I'm just going to focus on business administration, like the broadest thing. But I just decided that in like 1 or 2 days, and I didn't think about it anymore. And because the moment I decide, it's done. It leaves my head. The moment I decide something, it's done. It's final. There's nothing I can do, nothing I want to do. I don't care anymore. The moment I handed in that form, I just went along with my class. The moment I decided what degree I'm gonna do, I said, okay, I'm gonna focus on this, and I'm going to finish it, and I don't care about other options. Oh, do I want to be a physiotherapist, or do I want to be this or that? No, because I also learned that, okay, unless you want to become a doctor, right, or a dentist, or an engineer, like a very specific profession, no one cares what you study.
That's
right?
true. That's so true.
It doesn't matter. You will make it work. You will always find a way to make sense out of your background and eventually find a place. But obviously you have to make an effort to make it work.
Correct.
And whether that, to be honest, whether that is 100% true or not, doesn't matter, right? Maybe this is not true. Maybe everything I did was, obviously I was lucky that I chose these things. But at least I had that mindset
Yeah.
And if I went another route, I would still have that mindset and then still make it work, you know. And I think that mindset will just help you to stay happy and positive. And when you make decisions from that point of view, I think it's much better. You know, like recently, I shared the story on my blog of one of my former professors in business school, who was a doctor medicine, and then later on, much later in life, in his 50s, I believe, he was like, "Oh yeah, I want to get a PhD in business. I want to become a professor." And then when he was my professor, I think he was like 60 or something. I can't remember exactly. But it was a very fascinating guy. You know, like I learned a lot from him, just, you know, in a short amount of time. And the most important thing being is that it's never too late to make a change, even if you went through this whole career. And maybe your parents forced you, or you had a lot of pressure, etc. This is not the end of your life.
Correct.
You know, whenever the moment you decide you want to do something else, you can make it work. And even here, it's like it's better probably when you are a little bit older. Let's say you are in your 30s or 40s. You know, some people think, "Oh, it's too late. You only learn when you are young." That's also a big misconception. But probably you're better off when you're in your 30s or 40s because you're more mature. You have more ability to learn these mental things a bit quicker, you know, because you've gone through your teenage and your 20s, and if it's correct, you start to care less about what people think and what others do, because you realize, well, I did this all my life and I have nothing, you know.
Correct. No.
So yeah, it's never too late to make a change.
Yeah, I think it makes so much sense. Before we wrap this up, like the story that you told, the anecdote about when you filled up what you wanted to do, the same system works in India. So in high school, I have to select either science or humanities and arts, or maybe business. I picked up science. I was learning applied physics in my undergraduation, and I dropped out of college. And then I worked in McDonald's. I realized, oh, you know, I'm someone who can speak with people, and I don't really come from a wealthy background in India, middle class families, you know, humble beginnings. And then now I have my own entrepreneurship journey going on for the past 3.5, 4 years. I do a lot of business related work, and I think what you said, it is never too late if you have the mindset to change and put in the efforts, right?
Yeah.
Now, coming to that part, Darius, you've written 7 books, and anybody that I have recommended your books to, they sort of fall down and say this is one of the easiest books that I've understood and I've picked up, and I've finished this in like a week's time. You're going to write your 8th book, and I think by the time this goes out, your book will still not be out. It's going to take probably another year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I want to learn. I really want to be there. Maybe whenever you do the launch. I am getting my Schengen visa, so I'm probably going to be there at the book launch. Like that'll be my aim. But I really want to understand, Darius, the journey. Some people say, "Oh, I'm going to take, write a book, stop it." You've written 7. You're onto your 8th one, and this is the one that you are working with. You're not self-publishing it from the get-go, right? After 7 books, right? That's a long journey. What keeps you going? And, we'll wrap it up with that. If you can just give a little bit of highlights on what the book is going to be about, so we can get our listeners sort of excited about it. And then we'll close this in.
Yeah, I think that this is also something that I've been thinking about for a long time, in terms of, your question about what keeps you going, etc. So for my upcoming book, I'm working with Penguin Portfolio, which was for me a very positive thing to happen, because they've published many of my favorite books as well, from Robert Greene and Seth Godin and many others, and working with editors, and the reason that I wanted to work with a team is that I self-published my other books, And now I want to get to the next level, reach more people across the globe. And obviously, I have worked with Penguin in India and Southeast Asia for distributing my books. And I realized that's also, by the way, an amazing team who've been very supportive with, distributing the books and making sure they're widely available. And that's one of the reasons, obviously, that they've been picked up so well there. And I saw that power, right, of working with a team and making sure that distribution is well. But mostly, the most important thing is that at some point in your life, when you are doing something, in the beginning, everybody's still searching. Right? Very, very few people from a young age know what to do. Like if you have 1,000 people, maybe one or two will stand up and say, "Yeah, I want to cure cancer, or I want to, fly people to Mars or whatever." Stuff like that, very specific.
Yeah.
Most people don't know what to do, so you're always searching. And when you're always used to a life of searching, a lot of people get stuck in that mode of always searching, never knowing. So what's really important is that one day you sit down and you look at yourself and decide who you are. And what you are dedicating your life to.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I said, I am a writer, right? I'm not a public speaker. I'm not a podcaster, not a YouTuber, not a consultant, even not a coach. Well, I obviously do that indirectly through my books, but
yeah,
I'm not any of those things. I'm a writer, and this is what I do. I write books, and I share the things that I've learned, and my only goal is to educate and inspire others. And this is what I do. And if this is what I do, I want to do it right, and I want to do it at the highest level.
Yeah.
And then you look at what it takes to do that well. And this is how I basically have been operating.
Correct.
I would say for the past 2 years almost, right? And before that, it was still searching. So if you look at, 7 years into this, first 5 years, building, growing, and then initially not doing it, and then starting to do well, start to work yourself into a good position, you feel better, you start earning better, you get in a position where you can get to choose, and then it's time to make that decision, and then obviously not necessarily for the rest of your life, but at least for the foreseeable future, where you say, okay, this is what I do. And since I made that choice, everything else has been very simple for me, because I just, okay, do I want to go and publish stuff every day on social media or Twitter or Instagram or whatever? Okay, maybe that sounds nice and maybe some people will like it, but that's not who I am.
Correct.
Right? So you get to judge activities and look at options and the things in your life by who you are, right? So it narrows things down once again and makes your life very simple. And then also you stop looking at others.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So because you say, I'm a writer, this is what I am, this is what I like, this is my life, and I'm dedicated to this. And then you stop thinking to yourself, oh, what if I was, like a Warren Buffett, or what if I had my own hedge fund, or what if I had my own, what if I would be on TV, or I don't know, whatever, all kinds of other things people would like to do, or had like a chain of restaurants, or would be an artist and just paint all day, or like a professional athlete. So you stop looking at all of the other options that there are in the world, and then you just focus on who you are. And then I think when you achieve that level, things will get a lot simpler for you, because then it's like you just stop caring about most things. And this was funny because I talked to Derek Sivers a few, like 2 years ago or something, and this was still when I was like figuring this stuff out. And I asked him, I was like, "Yeah, man, what are things that that you care about?" Or I can't remember exactly what the question was, but we got to this whole topic of saying that, well, there are actually very few things in the world that I really care about. And that's a very, very small list, and the rest I just like I don't really have an opinion about. And I think that's a good way to live when it comes to career stuff, and you know, the way that you operate in your life. Obviously, it doesn't mean that we become like robots who don't care about other people, or care about family, or care about our customers or readers. That's not what it means. It means like you don't get swayed by other interesting and flashy things in life. So it doesn't really change your thoughts. You will remain centered around the thing that you value, and that just makes everything a lot simpler. So the question about figuring this stuff out and pursuing my book deal, etc., all comes from that realization. Because if I was still searching, if I still didn't know and was still experimenting, I would still try out a lot of different things. So what if I maybe do start doing some more YouTube videos, or whatever, right? So then you will never narrow down on something and then say, okay, I'm going to pick this and I want to be the best in the world at this.
Makes sense. Well, this has been such a delight. Thank you so much, Darius, for joining me and taking out your time. I know while you're writing a book, I don't know how much focus that you put yourself into, but as much as I know, I think you accommodating this in your calendar itself is super appreciative.